The pandemic arises from Wuhan, China, before the year end of 2019, and this really created a vast majority of tragedy for all the entire nation. COVID-19 proactively aligned both phases of the pros and cons. This covers the whole world, the nation, the humanity, and the spiritual aspect of every religion. In this discussion, we will be focusing primarily in the mortal features. This is for the purpose of highlighting the individual's concerns during the pandemic times. Philippines is one of the third world country. It is underdeveloped, and obviously there is a least chance of survival in this kind of crisis if people cannot be controlled. Government announced the implementation with immediate effect the enhanced community quarantine to all areas last 16th of March 2020. Due to the increasing cases of being infected by COVID-19, municipalities, cities, and different government units have started issuing a mandatory quarantine passes that only one person per household is allowed to go outside to purchase basic necessities and provisions for food in order to contain the increasing rate of the virus. A twice-a-week schedule and the number of people who can go out is as well limited to avoid overcrowding and to observe social distancing. Wearing of masks in public is mandatory implemented as well. Likewise, all establishments will be closed until further notice. Military departments were deployed to the whole nation to execute full monitoring for the said quarantine. Checkpoints, cancellation of public events, closure of commercial and retail businesses, closure of schools and universities, social distancing and other prohibitions were strictly observed. No matter how much the government is protecting the whole country, there are still numerous citizens who still violates and who doesn't care for the purpose of the said ECQ. At the same time, various groups stated their concerns on human rights violations committed by these authorities implementing the rules regarding the ECQ. Yes, the government wants to secure the whole country of the Philippines. However, they forgot to consider the majority of the citizens are unfortunate and poor. Homeless people are lined up on the street and nowhere to go. They waited for the care home centers to be open for them to stay, allotted by the government. But this doesn't cover the population as we have limited resources. Tendency, they have the high exposure to contract the COVID-19. The unemployment status of the Filipino citizens is now starting to create chaos in the whole country. People who depends to get their day-to-day living in a day work have given depression, worse disorders, and killings in some part of the areas.
Nagugutom talaga kami pag hindi kami bumiyahe dahil wala kami pira, wala kami pambiling bigas. Mahirap eh. Mahirap pag mahirap. Walang pagkukunan ng kailangan, pagkain.
Babies are the ones mostly affected by the current situation. Sick people who needs urgent medication and elderly ones having no family at all. These people have the high rate of needs because they have nothing. These unfortunate citizens are unable to abide such quarantine protocols because it is impossible for them to follow, which brought them to jails as violators. These people will not die in contracting COVID-19, rather dying having no food in their stomach. They violate the law not because they have no discipline, but because they have no choice. The government food supplies and assistance are now being an issue to the country. Politics and corruption are everywhere. Instead of unity and pure-heartedly concern, co-countrymen are the ones who is taking everything for granted. From small units of barangay to the big units of cities and areas. They control the everyday supplies which should be provided fairly to each family. Overall, controlling the whole country to contain COVID-19 is not an easy task to do. Thinking how the government, especially President Rodrigo Duterte, planned despite the situation and that our resources cannot really sustain the current crisis. We cannot balance what needs to be done properly, and it is not the government to be pointed at. It should start within us to be responsible, to have the attitude of unity, to be unselfish at this time, to care for others and help each other. There is no room if you are in the middle class, rich, poor. There should be one goal, and that is to help save the lives of people. And most importantly is, we must come back and acknowledge the Almighty.